Let's start off with the Cincinnati Bengals first. The Cincinnati Bengals have been very, very terrible in terms of defense. Yes, you may have Trayvon Henderson somehow doing his part, but the offense is just yikes, mid. As soon as they traded for Joe Flacco, they should have traded for Russell Wilson. But because the recent report said they have no interest of him, I don't even know why. I mean, yes, you still got Jamar Chase, you still got T. Higgins, it's well deserved contract, but Joe Burrow unfortunately is out for 3 months, which I hope he recovers really well. And that seems to be pretty much it. Now on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. On to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have been dominant in every aspect in this game of football. Between the Browns and the Steelers, I would say the Steelers overall won that. But in my opinion, for this Thursday night game, I got the Pittsburgh Steelers beating the Bengals.
Oh boy. I mean, yeah, I gotta go with the Steelers in this one. The Browns, or not the Browns, sorry, the Bengals are just putrid defense. In their offense, if with the right quarterback, obviously that being Joe Burrow there, it helps, but they don't have him. And we've seen how they've looked without Burrow. They've been dropping games and dropping games. They're looking like the 2008 Detroit Lions or 2017 Browns so far without him. And the Steelers, I mean, they're good enough at 4-1. And considering that the Packers, who are also known for having a really good defense, similar to the Steelers, beat them, I gotta go with the Steelers because, to be fair, Aaron Rodgers, he's not prime Aaron Rodgers, but with the right talent around him, he still has something left. And Pittsburgh is the better all around team to cut to the chase. I'm going with the Steelers.
I couldn't agree more with you, Nikki, because the fact that the Steelers with Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf absolutely looks amazing.
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, hey, at least we got to see it before it was all said and done. And it's been fun thus far.
Now on to the second game, which is the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Los Angeles Rams in London. I gotta say, Trevor Lawrence looked very good. They looked phenomenal against, despite the loss against the Seahawks. Yes, you still got Travis Hunter, who's still doing his part in terms of offense at both sides of the field, but is it really enough to have more receptions? Don't think so. So the defense looks still great. The offense looks very, very, very all right. But I'm gonna say that, but between those two, let's start with the next team, the Los Angeles Rams. They're coming off after a yikes beat down against the Ravens. Yes, Jared Goff may have done, not Jared Goff, sorry, Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford has done his part, but everybody else, including Puka Nakua, has been doing his part too. So, in my perspective, after coming off a win against the most ugliest way possible against the Ravens, give me the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Los Angeles Rams. Because I think Trevor Lawrence could get it done like he did against the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm actually am going with the Jaguars in this one because the Rams, even though they're 4-2, the way they played against the Ravens, barely win, only putting up 17 points. I'm like, nah, they should have played better. And even with the Jaguars against Seattle, they still look respectable in that game. And the Rams, we've seen a few of their wins against the Texans and Ravens kind of look sluggish. And we usually know come midseason, the Matthew Stafford led Rams usually go on that bit of a slump. And we're at week 7. So this might be the time that a team like the Jaguars can beat them. We already know that the 49ers shorthanded beat them. I mean, the Jaguars, they've been doing pretty good. I don't trust the Rams defense to shut them down the way Seattle did.
Which is why I'm starting to think between the AFC South and the AFC North, the weakest division has to be the AFC North. I'm sorry to say it, but the AFC North looks weak.
Yes, absolutely. This season in particular.
AFC South looks very competitive. The NFC West looks somewhat competitive.
Right, NFC West. I mean, yeah, because I do feel like as the season goes along, though, with the NFC West, you're going to see the Niners definitely now with all the injuries piling up. It's going to catch up to them eventually. There's only so long you can go on with and battle on with injuries before eventually it starts costing you games. And we've seen this drill before with the very team, that being the Niners. We see eventually it always catches up to them. And in this case, yeah, but the AFC South, it's an all right division. You have like two good teams. Texans may still be decent. And then you have a team in a full blown rebuild in the Titans, who they were right to fire Brian Callahan. That coach, he had no business coming back. They should have at least gotten a halfway decent coach that could at least boost the morale for the season. It's going to be kind of hard to turn that team to a winning team this season, but at least have gotten a better coach there, because who says having a better leader there can't help during a rebuild? See the Detroit Lions. They didn't win a lot the first year with Dan Campbell, but his presence certainly helped turn the culture around and pave the way for where they're at now. I thought the
You know,
Titans.
speaking of that, I'm gonna say that the everyone, including myself, would agree with this. Brian Callahan should have been gone a long time ago with Carthon. Carthon should have been gone with Brian Callahan.
Yeah, that whole Titans, they really need to do a whole reboot with their structure of the organization itself. And hope, but now back to, yeah, the AFC South is all right. NFC West is actually a pretty solid division thus far. So it'll be interesting to see. But in this one, yeah, I will take the Jaguars in the upset. Moving right along, Bears versus Saints.
Hmm. You know, between those two teams, both NFC South and the NFC North, let's start off with this is the New Orleans Saints. Yes, they're coming off a loss against the Patriots with Drake May resurgence to the Patriots, but I'm starting to think Spencer Rattler's definitely improving.
I mean, to be fair, yes, recent weeks he's at least shown a little bit of something, and they've been at least competitive in their games. But obviously, the big problem at the time is still winning games. But this kind of reminds me of, to some degree, the Chicago Bears from a few years back, where we thought Justin Fields might be improving, but we never quite got it. I mean, who knows with Spencer Rattler? There's still anything could happen at this point, but I mean, the Saints, I'll give them credit. They're a competitive team, but they're not winning games. And the Chicago Bears, I'll say they're a pretty scrappy bunch. They've certainly, Ben Johnson has made a difference.
Between Matt Eberflus and Ben Johnson, I'm gonna say Ben Johnson has made more difference than Matt Eberflus. But about the Chicago Bears, they they pulled a revenge game on Monday night, the site last night's game against the Commanders after that Hail Mary they had to
Yep.
lose to, and that was the game that got the Commanders back to relevancy and back to the NFC Championship. So Caleb Williams has been playing very well. The only problem that I have with the Bears is their offense sometimes fumbling. They can sometimes mess up in terms of fumbling, and they could sometimes give up more yardage in sometimes like third down or second down or two plays later, whatever you want to call it. But I'm gonna say that the Bears defense needs to improve a lot more better, and especially recovering the ball more often. So overall, I'm gonna go with the Chicago Bears on this one.
Same here, because I feel like the Bears, they are a better team, but to your point, they're not all the way there yet. They're not a complete team. They still have some work to do, but we kind of knew going into the season this team was a work in progress. But I feel like this is a favorable matchup against the Saints. It's one of the easier games on the schedule. Should be a win for them because they've already had, victory over the Commanders. Okay, maybe not the performing up to standards so far, but they're still a pretty decent team. And the Bears have at least shown something. I feel like that they should win this game. Should be a good one. I already looked at the next game. This is probably going to be a quick one.
Nah, we don't need to explain this even more. So I'm not gonna waste your time to say this. This is a definition of tank bowl. This is a tank bowl matchup between the Dolphins and the Browns. Two
Yeah.
worst teams in their respective divisions. So I'm not going to waste any more time to explain which teams which is suck. So I'm going to go with the Miami Dolphins to win the tank bowl. So no big surprise, but I think I see Tua Tagovailoa bouncing back unless Gabriel Dillon decides to go crazy. So give me them Dolphins over the Browns.
Yes, I would put it this way: the Dolphins win the game, but in terms of successful tanking, the Browns win the tank by losing the game. But either way, yeah, this is going to be a cluster. Miami wins based off talent alone. The game moving right along. Good for New England.
The next matchup is the Titans versus the Patriots. Well, I'm starting to feel bad for Cam Ward because at this point, I don't even know why they even took him. I mean, the way how they saw his talents, sure, but what if I told you that the Titans took Jackson Dart instead of Cam Ward? What if I told you that? Would that make a huge difference for the Titans? Absolutely. But will the O-line protect their quarterback in terms of that? Absolutely not. Yes, Calvin Ridley may have gotten himself a few yardage, but that's pretty much about it. So enough with the Titans. I see them progressively rebuilding, but I think at this point they need to fire their GM as well. So enough with the Titans, on to the Patriots. Drake May is on a resurgence, as I mentioned a while back. Drake May has been playing amazing. You have Stephon Diggs. You have Trayvon Henderson, one of the best running backs from Ohio State. You have a really good O-line protection, and their defense is strong too. So overall, my pick, unfortunately for the Titans, will have to be the Patriots. So Drake May can get it done as long as the defense can get the job done too. So give me the New England Patriots over the Tennessee Titans.
Yep, I will go with the same here because the Tennessee Titans are a dumpster fire. That with Calvin Ridley, it's interesting because at the time he came off Atlanta, he showed flashes there, but the Titans should have realized, yeah, Calvin Ridley was a number 2 receiver, never a number 1 option. Usually trying to give
Exactly.
number 2 receivers number 1 money doesn't work out. That's just one of the many problems the Titans have. And the Patriots, they're improving and they got another easy game on the schedule. Give me them to cruise to 5-2.
The next match is the AFC West matchup. The Las Vegas Raiders versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, let's start off with the Chiefs. No big surprise. Yes, they may have gotten the Lions few penalties, but that's pretty much it. Patrick Mahomes is too good. Travis Kelsey, obviously. Um, what's that? Okay, Isaiah Pacheco's great. Everybody else is great. Yada yada yada. But I think if only the Chiefs' defense doesn't have to give up that much yardage, they would have never had a close game. But as for the Las Vegas Raiders, yes, Geno Smith is coming off a win against one of the weakest teams in the AFC South, but I don't think that's going to be enough to beat Patrick Mahomes and the others. Yes, you got Mad Max Crosby and, of course, Brock Bowers, and you got the new rising star of Asher Genti, but I don't think that's going to be enough to beat the Chiefs. So, Nikki, there will be no big surprise that the Kansas City Chiefs will cruise their way nearly into first place in the AFC West.
Absolutely, because we saw some signs in the Detroit game that Kansas City's starting to get its groove back after the offseason. They're starting to return to form. And I feel like this is the turning point where they start to go on a win streak, win a bunch of games, and remind people why Patrick Mahomes is considered the best quarterback in the NFL currently. And the Raiders are the perfect punching bag to keep that momentum going in Kansas City to move to 4-3. So give me Kansas City to win this. The Raiders, man, 2+ decade hangover after a Super Bowl. Okay. That's okay. 5-year hangover, then you start to improve one thing, but we're going on nearly 25 years and you've only been back to the playoffs twice. Exact opposite of what Kansas City's doing.
The next matchup, we got the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the Minnesota Vikings are coming off a bye, right? Yes, you have JJ McCarthy. Yes, you have Carson Wentz, the former Eagles quarterback. And you also have TJ Hawkinson. You got Justin Jefferson. Yes, you have all that. But their defense is also great too. The Minnesota Vikings are one of the few teams that could also compete for the playoffs. So I'm going to put it this way and say this. The Vikings may have gotten themselves a lot of momentum, but in terms of defense, they've been great. So enough of that. Now onto the Eagles. Yikes. They're coming off a major upset against one of the weakest teams in the NFC. Yes, they got an upset against the Broncos, but taking it out on the Giants would make this worse. What made it worse for the team? Their secondary was terrible. I mentioned that earlier. I mentioned Jalen Hurts. A lot of people call Jalen Hurts overrated, which I don't agree. And Saquon Barkley, ever since that Madden curse he had, he has been getting less yardage than any other running back in the league. Yes, he may have dropped off to top 15 or top 10, but I don't think that's going to be enough. But I beg to differ. What if I told you the Philadelphia Eagles bounce back against the Vikings? What if I told you the Philadelphia Eagles get their head straight and get their act together and go back to winning more games? Which is why I got the Philadelphia Eagles getting the win against the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, that's I would love as an Eagles fan, that's what I'd love to see happen. But at the same time, kind of iffy on this one. It's a tough one at the moment to pick because Eagles should win this matchup. But the way Minnesota's currently structured, I mean, even being shorthanded a top quarterback, they've still found a way to get to 3-2, and they've done themselves pretty solid favor. But I kind of wonder, who's starting? Is it McCarthy or Wentz? I mean,
Well, consider JJ McCarthy's out. I think it's going to be Carson Wentz, depending on
probably
how Kevin how the head coach
Kevin
I forgot his
O'Connell.
last name. Yeah, thank you, Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell would do in terms of quarterback starting. So I think give you the Philadelphia Eagles will bounce back against the Vikings.
Yeah, I feel like they can in this one. Sue, I mean, I'll begrudgingly pick the Eagles, but this could be a toss-up as of now, mainly because that Eagles defense, not just the secondary, but you're also missing Josh Sweat and Milton Williams to New England, too.
You forgot about Jalen Carter. He's also out too.
Oh, out again? I don't.
Well, he did miss Thursday's night game, did he?
Yes, he did.
Quentin Johnson is quite questionable for potentially for this week too.
I mean, I still got time to decide on that one, but
Me too.
I might come back to that at the end of the week. Put it that way for now. Moving on, Panthers and Jets.
You really thought the Jets are going to do something different this year, huh? Well, apparently they thought wrong, huh? Apparently I was wrong. I thought the Jets was going to be on a resurgence. No, they weren't. They weren't on the resurgence because Justin Fields played terrible in London. If you see that London game, while I was at Comic Con this year, it was terrible. The defense were the only thing that matters when Sauce Gardner was doing his part. Aaron Glenn was really upset about that. He was upset at the way how the Jets are playing, and their owner sucks. No question about it. They're wasting Garrett Wilson's career, and on top of all that, Brees Hall needs to be traded as well. So I'm gonna call this right now as a bold prediction. The bold prediction will be this: the New York Jets will trade almost every player, every starter to start a whole new rebuild. So I'm sorry to say this. So I'm sorry to say it, but the Jets at this point could potentially go 0-10 like they did 5 years ago. So give me the Carolina Panthers over the New York Jets. But before we even go even further, let's look at the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers pulled the greatest upset of the week, despite the fact that Giants did against the Eagles. But the Carolina Panthers are officially one of the few contenders for the future. Bryce Young did amazing. Everybody else did amazing. The defense, including Rico Dottle, amazing. So I'm not going to waste even further. Give me the Carolina Panthers over the New York Jets.
Same here. I'll take the Panthers. And plus, to be fair, the Panthers have a habit of showing up, particularly the run game with Rico Dowdle against struggling teams like the Dolphins and the Cowboys. And the Jets, perfect field day for Rico Dowdle if he plays to have himself another good game in this one. Panthers will run their offense all over the Jets and run up the score somewhat and sneak away with a win to move to 4-3. Panthers 4-3. That's an interesting thought right there.
Speaking of the Broncos, I know a lot of people talked about that Broncos game against the Jets. So they pretty much know how to beat the Jets at this point. But we got the New York Giants versus the Denver Broncos. And I know a lot of people are wondering, does Jackson Dart deserve all the credit against the Eagles heading into the week 7? Absolutely. Does it work out in terms of the defense and the secondary improving a lot more better? Absolutely. Bo Nix is coming off a strange game in London against the New York Jets, but unfortunately for them, they have officially become one of the weaker hangover team, but I see them more as a playoff hangover team. Yes, you still got their great defense with PS2 and other players, but that's pretty much it. I'm gonna say this way. I'm gonna put it this way. Denver has been playing a lot more better in terms of the defense. Yes, you got Cortland Sutton and you got Evan Ingram as a former Giant, but is this going to be enough to outmatch Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, and the Giants defense? No. So I'm going to say that the winner of that match, give me the New York Giants over the Denver Broncos. I think the Giants could get the job done with Cam Scatterbo and Jackson Dart. If they play their cards right with Rondale Robinson and the other receivers, they will be perfectly fine heading into week 8. So give me the New York Giants over the Denver Broncos. And they improve to 3-4.
This is going to be the one where, and not that, even putting aside fan bias, I've got a question with Jackson Dart because while he had himself an excellent game last week. This week we saw against the Saints, he's still rookie. It's still going to take some time. And here against the Broncos, you got Pat Surtain, you got Nick Bonato, who's having a really good season for the Denver Broncos. I don't think the Giants offense is going to be able to repeat the same effort here against the Denver Broncos, who are much better defense than obviously the Philadelphia Eagles currently. And this
between Andrew Thomas and that and one of the defensive line, I think it's going to be a heavyweight matchup.
But so I think this is probably going to be a lower scoring game, but this could be a toss-up too, because even though the Broncos are 4-2, they're not. I don't see them as an impressive 4-2. They feel like they're just kind of like an inevitable middle of the pack team when it's all said and done as the season goes along. So I think it's going to be a lower scoring, kind of a toss-up, but I'm going to go with the Broncos to edge them out in this one. I think the Giants offense still needs some time before they go into these type of games against defenses like the Broncos, but we will wait and see how it plays out.
And I'm definitely looking forward to that game at 4:25. Next up, we got the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Indianapolis Colts. Indiana Jones, who's having a much more better season than the Giants have. has been impressing me a lot. Yes, they have Tyler Warner, they have Jonathan Taylor, and other players, but that's pretty much it. Their defense is pretty solid too. And then we have the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are coming off a comeback victory against the Miami Dolphins. And to be honest, I see them. I see the Chargers starting to look a lot more better. So I'm going to say that fortunately for the Colts, they might get the job done, but I think Justin Herbert, if he plays his cards right, will be all right. But in my perspective, I see the Colts winning. Give me the Indianapolis Colts over the Los Angeles Chargers.
Oh, this is going to be a really good game, too. I feel like this has the potential to be a high scoring game. And we've noticed with the Chargers, with Jim Harbaugh, they know how to successfully run the ball no matter who their running back is. They lost their two main backs, but all of a sudden they inserted a guy we hadn't heard of whose name escapes me at the moment, and he had himself a really good game against the Dolphins. But I think this could be a close back and forth battle. I'm going to go, though, with the Chargers winning this one narrowly, but it's going to be a close game. This could be really good.
I could see I could see that happening. And about what you said about the Broncos and Giants game, I think you might be wrong because the Giants might be outscoring the Denver Broncos, but we never know. On to the next game.
Mm.
Next up, the NFC East matchup. The Washington Commanders versus the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are number one on offense. They suck on defense. Their run defense is terrible. Yes, Dak Prescott may have played the greatest game, but it's not enough to beat the Panthers with Bryce Young. George Pickens is the only player that's doing his part without CeeDee Lamb. Just Jake Ferguson may have protecting it to Prescott a little, but not too much. But as for the Washington Commanders, I think it's safe to say that they're coming off a really tough loss against the Chicago Bears, but Jaden Daniels needs to stop fumbling the ball, even in weather conditions. They need to stop fumbling the ball too much. Otherwise, they're not going to win any more games, and it will be an NFC championship hangover. So, in my perspective, I got them bouncing back against the Cowboys. So, give me the Washington Commanders over the Dallas Cowboys, so they can improve the record back to one game on over 500.
Same here, especially with how weak the Cowboys defense is, because Washington does have a lot of talent. When we've seen that Cowboys defense struggle against a Russell Wilson-led Giants, struggled against the Packers, with Jordan Love after last week kind of looking, they struggled against the Panthers. And the Commanders, this is a perfect opportunity for them to get their mojo back on the offensive side of the ball, going against that dumpster fire Cowboys defense. So I'll take the Commanders to bounce back. Still got Samuel. You got a decent rookie running back. You still got Zach Ertz, who's still a pretty decent option in the offense. But either way, I like
for you and say that they should have kept BR2. They should have kept Bijan Robinson from the Falcons.
Definitely, they made a big mistake there, letting actually, I think it was Brian Robinson, but
yeah, Brian Robinson. They should have kept him.
Yeah, definitely. But in this one, though, the Commanders, I'll take them to bounce back in this one, beat the Cowboys. Moving on, Packers versus Cardinals.
Jacoby Brissett has been playing a lot more better, but in terms of other players like Marvin Harrison Jr. and other players, but I'm gonna say that, on my perspective, I'm gonna say that.
Go ahead, take your time.
Sorry about that. It's my dog. Anyways, I'm gonna say that Green Bay is coming off a really good win against the Bengals, and no big surprise because the Packers could potentially be could contend for a Super Bowl. So I'm gonna say that if Jordan Love plays his cards right, I think they'll get the job done. So give me the Green Bay Packers over the Arizona Cardinals.
In this one, yes, I'll definitely go with the Packers, especially with how good a defense they have. As far as Jacoby Brissett, he did play good, but that could have also been a one-off too. Especially now you're going against the Green Bay Packers and the Arizona Cardinals. I'll say this, they were the worst 2-0 team when they entered week 3 undefeated, because those two games against the Saints and Panthers, they probably should have lost but found ways to win. Now, at least the Packers, you know what you got. You got yourself a really solid team. My thing was with Jordan Love, he didn't look great when he probably should have played better against the Bengals defense. But you still have Josh Jacobs. You still have solid options like Romeo Dobbs there. And you're going against the Cardinals team with Jonathan Gannon, seat getting hotter over there. Give me the Green Bay Packers to win this one.
And it turns Xavier McKinney after 1 year, he could have done better this year. Next up, we got the San Francisco 49ers against the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the 49ers are coming off a very tough loss against the Buccaneers. But in my perspective, Mac Jones or Brock Purdy is actually looking pretty good. But the defense, I really feel bad for Nick Bosa and and Fred Warner. I really feel bad for both of them because they're coming off a really disappointing injury. But in terms of that, you still got George Kittle, you still got CMC, you still got your wide receivers, and that's pretty much it. But I think, in my perspective, that the 49ers can be a Super Bowl contender, but it's will nearly close the window slam shut range. Now on to the Atlanta Falcons. They're coming off an impressive win against the Buffalo Bills. You have Michael Penix, who has been very good so far in the NFC South, but it's not going to be enough to compete against the Buccaneers in terms of the playoffs. But I think, in my perspective, if they play the cards right like they did against Buffalo, I think they got a shot to win the NFC South. So I'm going to see, in my perspective, the 49ers bouncing back against the Falcons. Enough said.
Oh, this is an interesting game right here because the Falcons are fresh off a victory over Buffalo and the 49ers are a battered team. This might, Mac Jones looked pretty solid a couple games, but then the against the Buccaneers, he kind of struggled. And we even saw this defense do a pretty good job against Josh Allen last night. Falcons defense are a lot better than some give them credit for. And their offense is all right. Here going against the Niners, this might seem like another trap game, kind of like the 49ers in Jacksonville. I'm going to go with the Falcons in this one because Mac Jones, after yesterday, I'm not too sure about. And plus, to be fair, we saw, like I said, the Falcons did uphand the Buffalo Bills, so I'm going to take Atlanta to win this one and get the upset. We got 2 Monday night games
I agree
again.
with you. I agree with you on that one, Nikki. But I think if you want to talk about who could be the most injured team in the league, last year we had the Detroit Lions. I think this year could be either the 49ers or the Lions. Speaking of the Detroit Lions, we got the Detroit Lions versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, rematch of the 2023 NFC Divisional Round. Now, I know what a lot of people are wondering that if the Lions couldn't beat the Buccaneers, they could be well back in NFC North aspirations. So they're coming off a bad loss against Kansas City by 1 score. Yes, you still got a great defense of Aiden Hutchinson and others, but in my perspective, Sonic and Knuckles, aka Jamar Gibbs and David Monty, they should be a lot more better. But it's not going to be enough because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a far more superior team because ever since Baker Mayfield magically did better on a real system, Baker Mayfield is now in contention to win the MVP. So I'm going to say that give me the Buccaneers over the Detroit Lions by a higher point differential.
I'm going to go with the same here in this one. I'm going to take the Buccaneers because this really looks like this is their year where they get everything together and they actually contend. I even saw Baker. Yes, Baker looked up. He threw like 5 different receivers for a combined 12 receptions, kind of similar to what Brady was doing 2020 and 2021, picking defenses apart, spreading the ball out with different options. Now Tampa's got the weapons; they can do it with Baker, and that trend will continue against the Detroit Lions in this one. Moving on, last
Oh
game.
boy. The last game of week 7, the Houston Texans against the Seattle Seahawks. Speaking of Seattle sports, congratulations on the victory against the Toronto Blue Jays in game 2. So I would say that the Houston Texans, they're coming off a bye week. We know that. They dominated against the Ravens. CJ Stroud looks amazing. Joe Mixon looks great. Nico Collins have been amazing. But their defense looking great too. Now onto the Seattle Seahawks. Sam Darnold got what he wanted. Cooper Kupp may have gotten himself a few yardage, but I think at this point he's mid. But in my perspective, I still see a really interesting matchup between these two. So I'm gonna say give me the Seattle Seahawks over the Houston Texans.
Yep, I'm going to go with the Seahawks in this one because they've been playing really good on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. And with Houston, I haven't seen them get it together yet on offense. So I'm going to take, in this case, the Seahawks to continue their momentum, improve to 5-2 against the Houston Texans, and take advantage of their struggles.
I could pretty much see the Seahawks having some NFC West aspirations if the Rams and the 49ers struggle badly. But it would be shocking if the Seattle Seahawks win the division. Now, as for the Eagles and Giants, which I mentioned earlier in the show, the Eagles secondary looks bad. The Giants looks looks great, but I think in terms of developmental terms, I think they're starting off a really good start. Yes, they may have lost against the Saints due to a trap game, and they can't beat them in New Orleans. But in my perspective, I mentioned that I mentioned that they could beat the Broncos because Jackson Dart might do something great like he did against the Eagles. If they can play the cards right, they could actually play they could actually win more football games and they got a shot to go to the playoffs. Now, as for the Broncos, you mentioned that their defense is great in terms of PS2 and their linebacker, but in terms of heavyweight competition, I think Andrew Thomas may have the better advantage in terms of protecting their quarterback. If Jackson Dart can play his cards right, this team can potentially become a few good a future team to be reckoned with, similar to the Cincinnati Bengals in the early 2020s.
Yeah, and I think, yep. But it'll be interesting to see what goes on right now. I'm still going to have to wait and see. I could always come back to the picks later as the injury report comes out along Friday and change some picks, but we ultimately going to wait and see what happens. There are some interesting games on this one. Buccaneers Lions being one of them. Rams and Jaguars looks like it could be an interesting matchup. Colts and Chargers are 3 games I'm looking forward to. So we going to have to wait and see what happens. If there's anything you want to add.
So the last thing I want to add before we wrap this up is that things could possibly look more dark than the New York Jets' future has of after hiring Eric Glenn and Justin Fields' 2 years as quarterback. But in terms of offensive coordination, their coordinator is terrible. Everything about the Jets is terrible. I mentioned that this team could be a similar start like they did 5 years ago. We've seen this movie before in terms of teams that start 0-10. We've seen the Giants start 0-10 in 2017. We've seen the Jets start 0-10 in 2020. We've seen several teams like the Panthers start 0-10. They're the ones that the teams I mentioned are the ones that were competing for the tank bowl, but ultimately destroyed their tank at the last moment because of the wins. I understand you're playing for the win, but at what cost? Your draft pick. Everything about that I said was true. The Lions were 0-16. The Browns were 0-16. The Buccaneers at one point was winless. So I'm gonna say that the for the one last thing for the Jets is that they are officially the worst team in the AFC. Yes, the Browns are up there, but I don't think that's enough because the Jets could potentially start the year 0-10 after getting rid of Aaron Rodgers. Speaking of Aaron Rodgers, he has been a lot more better on the Steelers in the AFC North in terms of his prime in Green Bay. But I think to me, if the Steelers get their cards right on Thursday night, they could be well on their way winning the AFC North and potentially getting a first round bye. That's if they have to get past the Colts and the Chiefs. Because the Colts are now on a resurgence to to be first place. And the last time the Colts, the Patriots, the Chargers, and every other team I mentioned earlier, the last time those were good was back in 2006. You remember that season, right, Nikki?
Yep.
That 2006 season was amazing for the Colts and of course the Chicago Bears. So if the Chicago Bears play their cards right, the Giants play their cards right, the Colts play their cards right, the Cardinals play their cards right, the Chargers play their cards right. I mentioned some of these teams because sometimes they don't play their cards right in terms of playoff aspirations. Now, if I said the Chargers are one of the worst teams in the AFC South, I would strongly disagree. You will say the Raiders will be the worst team in the AFC West because the Chargers and the Chiefs are the only two teams that can compete alongside the Denver Broncos. Now, as for the NFC East, it's slowly becoming the NFC least, but not by a long shot because you have the Giants who are 2-4, could potentially go 3-4. You have the Eagles who are struggling majorly in terms of the secondary, and the Commanders coming off of one of the worst losses possible against the team that beat and got themselves back into the NFC Championship. So I won't say the NFC least is slowly coming back, but not by a long shot. They've still got a long way to go. But as for the New York Giants, their developmental is great so far. If this pans out really great for the next couple of years, this will be just as similar as the Cincinnati Bengals. I would be shocked if they make the playoffs over the Dallas Cowboys.
And that looks like for Nikki Stees, Agent Warrior, that's all we got, unless there's something you want to plug before we head on out.
Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you subscribe to Hardcourt Sports Network and my good friend Nikki. Until next time, goodbye, my friends.
Peace.